It sparked large protests both in Maitland and Wyong. The state government last year announced its plans to enter into a public-private model to fast-track 4 regional hospitals. Now, with Health Minister Gillian Skinner announcing her retirement, the HSU says it's time to act.
I think this is an opportunity for not only the Premier but also the Health Minister to press the reset button, rethink some of the decisions that have been made in the past and treat the people of New South Wales in a far more considered manner.
Maitland's Labor MP Jenny Aitchison agrees, saying the new $400 million Maitland Hospital should be in public hands.
We definitely don't want to have any of these public-private partnership experiments done in our community. We need to have a public hospital and it needs to be of the right size for the growing community.
That sentiment echoed in Wyong. There are concerns the model would favour profit before patients.
It's the community that pays in the long run, either by the number of staff to look after patients or hikes in prices for patients. It may not be for emergency, but in other areas.
New Premier Gladys Berejiklian is adamant access to services won't be affected.
I think people are less concerned about who builds the hospital, who runs the hospital. What they want to know is that if someone they love or themselves need emergency care, that they will have access, and that is absolutely our priority.
Renee Feder, NBN News. With a stunning blue sky as the backdrop, pilots turned it on. From displays of aerobatic brilliance to a show of skill behind the controls of a T-28 Trojan. The vintage Warbird, one of a grand fleet that took to the sky over Rutherford for the Hunter Valley Air Show.
Tried to include a lot of really cool things that people don't normally get to see, like the Hurricane and the Corsair, the P-51 Mustang.
There was one star attraction noticeably absent. The F4U Corsair crash-landed during a pre-show flight. Thankfully, no one was hurt and the show could go on. Another crowd pleaser, the CA-18 Mustang.
The whole atmosphere is wonderful and lovely seeing these World War II aircraft. I'm getting a real buzz out of all that.
Really fun seeing all the aircrafts and everything take off.
We're having a great day and my husband's in heaven.
Swapping propellers for jet power, the L-39 Albatross proved an impressive sight. While for those who preferred to seek their thrills on wheels, stuntman Lukey Luke had it covered. The air show continues tomorrow. Amanda Bennett, NBN News. It's been a favourite on the region's calendar for more than a century, but organisers of the Newcastle show are concerned this year the 108th could be the last.
It is iconic. It has to continue. There's just no doubt about that.
Show President Brett Gleeson says the association has been in financial trouble in recent years. One of the biggest factors, a change in the showground's ownership and management to Venues New South Wales.
The government took away the ownership and the management of the showground in 2008. There was no compensation for that. And since then, the association has just slowly bled dry.
With that decision, the association lost its income. Mr Gleeson says the loss of the show holiday has also had an impact, and now it's calling for help.
We need some ancillary income reinstated. We also need the business community to help us make up for the $130,000 that we lose by not having a public holiday.
Parliamentary Secretary for the Hunter, Scott McDonald, says he's taken their concerns to the government and they're looking at short-term assistance and reviewing their revenue stream. Renee Feder, NBN News.
Back in the winner's circle and glad to be there.
They've worked hard and I think we've deserved better at times throughout the year. They've copped some flack at different times and I thought it was out of order, and it's good to see that they're getting some just rewards.
Everything just seemed to click for Newcastle. A perfect first-time ball from Marlele sent Andrew Naboot in on goal for the opener. That sparked City into action, but the Jets' backline was up for the challenge. Desperation in defence, doing whatever they could.
If they didn't shoot, they didn't score. So we wanted to block as many shots as we could, and all shots if we could, and we limited them to very few chances.
Just after the restart, the result was seemingly sealed. A winding run from Andrew Hull, ending with Naboot once again.
He's doing very well, and I'm just as pleased as the way he works off the ball defensively as I do going forward.
He was involved at the other end, a penalty for City. Fornaroli converted, only just. And the game reignited. Newcastle was unable to put City to the sword on multiple chances, while that frustrated the coach.
At the end of the day, we won and I'm happy.
Heartbreaking, to be honest, to get this close and then not be able to win that last one. We gave it everything we had. We just ran out of legs there at the end. We were chasing everything, we were pushing forward. We created a couple of chances, we just couldn't finish.
It leads you into state teams and then into Australian teams, which then links us to the professional league. So it sets them up for future pathways, which is really exciting.
It's always been about blokes, but there's a lot of girls out there that are really keen to, participate as well. Fun and fitness.
Stopped and waiting at a set of traffic lights, unknowingly just seconds away from a potential tragedy. The car appeared to run a red light at Sandgate, disaster avoided by the barest of margins. On board, a family, including children in the back seats. It's exactly what police are trying to avoid as thousands of motorists return home tonight. The school holiday traffic snarl began from early this afternoon. On the Pacific Highway at Heatherbrae, there were queues of up to 4.5 kilometres, while traffic at the Taro-Beresfield bottleneck came to a grinding halt. Highway patrol officers will be watching right until the end of Operation Safe Return. The number of crashes during the operation is down from the same time last year, but police say they are concerned with the number of people caught drink driving. That's increased by 953. The road blitz ends at midnight. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
In 2015, more than 3,000 people across Australia took their own lives, a tragic toll that weighs terribly on loved ones left behind.
They're often the forgotten ones in these tragedies.
Lifeline estimates up to 190 people can be affected in each suicide case, from family to friends, co-workers and next-door neighbours. In order to help them through their pain and despair, the group is piloting a new approach in the Hunter.
We'll have a senior psychologist working with a group of people who are bereaved by suicide to give them the skills and the strategies to get over that, or to put it in context and get on with their lives and to live in the now.
Family members bereaved by suicide are also 8 to 10 times more likely at risk themselves compared to the general population.
You're living in a parallel universe, you've lost somebody suddenly, and to make it way more complex, they have taken their own lives.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with the loss of a loved one, there is still spots available in the group therapy sessions.
We have spaces remaining. It's a free service with an extremely experienced psychologist who's experienced in crisis management, and we encourage people to come and talk to us.
While anyone needing help or support can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 24 hours a day. Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
I'm really, really proud of this song because I wanted it to shine a light on a problem all over Australia at the moment, and that is mental health and depression and the suicide rates in Australia. This has got to be a dream. Someone needs to wake me up.
Considered a future golden girl of the track, 22-year-old Mitchell enjoyed the warm conditions, running an impressive 51.93 seconds.
Yeah, happy to get the qualifier out of the way, and now we can just look forward to good training.
Elizabeth Clay appeared set to pull off the upset of the night in the women's 100-metre hurdles. Leading Olympian Michelle Jenneke in the closing stages, the win was sealed when Jenneke pulled up lame with a suspected injury. In the night's blue ribbon event, Sydney's Nicholas Andrews stopped the clock at 10.55 to win the men's 100-metre final.
Come out, do the 100, go as best I can. And I think just all executed well.
Little known Laura Story upset Olympians Lyndon Hall, Zoe Buckman and Annalise Ruby in the 800. Geordie Williams claimed a competitive men's 1500. Meanwhile, Madison Di Rosario was first across the line in the mixed gender wheelchair pursuit. Scott Edwards enjoyed a rest over the New Year period. After the way 2016 finished, it was well deserved. Taking a fight in India on short notice proved to be an experience he'll never forget.
He bit me, he pushed me down to the ground, punched me in the back of the head. Yeah, kicked me while I was on the ground. Just anything he could do just to try and get an edge and put me off my game.
Fresh from a win which saw him claim the state welterweight title, Edwards had agreed to the fight in New Delhi. While professional boxing is relatively new in the subcontinent, its popularity is growing fast. It was only his 5th pro bout, but a chance to get his name out to a global audience and top up the bank balance before Christmas. His opponent wasn't the only obstacle.
I struggled with, cutting the last little bit of weight and because the food was different, and they were feeding me, but they were feeding me a lot of bread and stuff like that, and it's not part of my usual diet.
He wasn't supposed to win, but after 6 rounds with Pardeep Carrera, Edwards prevailed in a unanimous decision.
The referee definitely wasn't on my side, but I was very, very lucky that they were international judges and they scored the fight right.
Growing in stature, Edwards' next 2 fights will be local, with plans to defend his state title in early April.
I'll just take it, fight at a time. I'd really like to, challenge for the Australian title real soon. We'll just have to wait and see.
Still searching for answers over the death of his son, some 3 years on, today a coronial inquest heard there were no suspicious circumstances surrounding the passing of David Wotherspoon while in custody at Cessnock Jail. Detective Inspector Gary James telling the court, "I don't believe any other person had anything to do with David's passing." The inquest was set up to investigate the circumstances surrounding Mr. Wotherspoon's death, which occurred in a safe cell fitted with 24-hour security cameras. Despite this, the court heard Mr. Wotherspoon, who was being treated for mental health conditions, was able to partially obscure the camera with wet toilet paper. He was found unresponsive 15 minutes later. When questioned by counsel assisting Peter Aitken over the monitoring of the security system, Mr. James told the inquest it's a huge task. A number of recommendations were made following the investigation, including increasing staffing numbers at the centre to improve the monitoring of security cameras, one which was implemented almost immediately. The inquest continues. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's a big hospital serving the whole region. There's a lot of support from the doctors, the nurses. So yeah, it made it very attractive to stay here.
A brave new world as little people enter big school and let go of mum and dad. Bye. Across the Hunter, thousands of students embarked on their new adventure, 70 taking the big step at Bishop Tyrrell Anglican College.
So many emotions at the moment, excited, apprehensive, cautious, nervous, probably all the same things that she's feeling.
I'm also feeling a bit nervous.
It is a huge milestone, not just for the students, but also for the mums and dads.
For some, it was all too much. For others, it was straight on to the important issues.
On his lunchbox.
Creating lifelong connections at the top of their wish list.
Playing with friends. Loving to play with my friends. Helping friends out.
After a meet and greet and settling in, it was finally time to say goodbye. Some couldn't wait to get started. Others found it a little difficult to let go. It was a similar scene outside, with parents looking to capture a lasting moment and siblings saying goodbye to their playmate. Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
and something people in the Hunter have had plenty of practice at.
Can't we get a bottle of water?
Escaping the heat, the foreshore was empty, with the beaches and the baths the place to be for young and old.
Where else could you be in the world better than this?
Yeah, we've come in here quite a lot. It's been really nice to come in of a morning and then maybe hit the air conditioning in the afternoon.
Before today, Newcastle was yet to break 40 degrees this summer, but it's been far hotter inland. Western Lake Macquarie has done it 4 times, and that's this month alone. It's the same number for Maitland and Cessnock, while Scona's seen 6 days above 40, a new record.
And the overall averages are way above normal as well for both December and January during the nighttime periods and the daytime periods.
We certainly haven't seen the end of the summer heat either. February is shaping up to be a scorcher with even more 40-degree days on the way.
Putting everything together amazingly, we're only 2 months in, but this could be the hottest summer on record.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
I certainly feel, very much at home here, and to be recognised as a captain, this early on for the Nines is something that, I feel privileged to do, and I'm really excited to get over there and hopefully play some good footy.
His return to the A-League is cruising along nicely. Seven goals in 14 games has plenty of people singing Naboot's praises, but he isn't getting carried away.
I'm very proud of what I'm doing, and but at the same time I try as much as I can to keep my feet on the ground, because at the end of the day I have to continue it for the whole season, and as as well as I'm doing now, there's areas that I have to improve on.
Naboot made the team of the week alongside Steven Ugarkovic. Unfortunately, he picked up a 5th yellow card for the season and is now suspended. In a boost for Newcastle, Wayne Brown is due to return from injury for the clash with the Glory in Perth. The sides have played twice already this season. The Jets won in the West before scoring a 2-2 draw in Newcastle a fortnight ago.
I just think we started very well in the first game against them, whereas in the second game I think we started a little bit slower. If we go out there and push straight from the start, I think we'll be very hard to beat.
The Glory keeper has played a major role in those results. He'll also miss round 18 because of suspension.
It's a blessing for us. He's been quality all season for them, and whoever comes in, I'm sure we're going to test him out early and see what he's got.
20th, 9th and 7th in the opening rounds, Reid was determined to rise in Phoenix. He qualified 12th for the final, but was challenging the leaders by lap 2. As his rivals stumbled, the former world champion progressed. He even took down the series leader, to edge into second, and that's where he stayed. Post-race, the 34-year-old unleashed some frustration on his team.
We sat on our hands all off-season, So finally, when you suck at the first race, they allow you to do the things that you feel like you need to do. And finally now I can ride the dirt bike the way I feel like I need to.
To pedal power, and the Hunters' Cameron Ivory won rounds 3 and 4 in the elite division at the National Downhill Mountain Bike Series in Armidale. To basketball, and it was a frustrating night for Newcastle's Susie Batkovic and her Townsville Fire. Taking on the league-leading Flames, Batkovic led all scorers with 21, but missed a pair of late free throws as the Fire lost by 1. Better news for Raymond Terrace lawn bowler Natasha Scott. She's moved a step closer to representing Australia at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games by being selected in the Jackaroos team for 2017.
Renee Mitchell's family united after coming face to face with her alleged killer, 68-year-old Graham Sloan. On the opening day of his murder trial, Sloan pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. His defence barrister, Janet Manuel, telling the court at the time he killed her, he was suffering from an abnormality of the mind. But the Crown prosecutor rejected the plea, claiming Sloan intended to kill 38-year-old Ms Mitchell on November 11 and that the accused had the capacity to control himself on the day in question. He told the jury Sloan took Ms Mitchell to Bangalore Reserve and stabbed her 4 times, and that a significant amount of force was used because the knife moved through her rib. Ms Manuel, however, argued the accused was manic prior to the killing, convinced he was a travelling comedian about to embark on a tour of Iraq to entertain the troops, and that on the day of the murder, Sloan even went to Newcastle to purchase $8,000 of music equipment, then to a Bennett's Green electrical retailer, then to a car dealership to buy a $25,000 vehicle before returning to Bennett's Green. The Crown alleges after leaving the store, Sloan then went straight to Ms Mitchell's home, where he let himself in and walked to the kitchen, where Ms Mitchell was cooking dinner. Then, for reasons unknown, she left with the accused without her phone, shoes or wallet and was never seen again. The trial is expected to run for 2 weeks. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Kurri Kurri and its surrounds have been at the centre of firefighting efforts this season, with 4 major emergencies in recent weeks.
We have had the worst number of fire emergencies this summer so far than any time that I can remember.
Fire and Rescue New South Wales had plans to close its Western station, proposing to move firefighters to the upgraded Abermain site once it's fully operational. The decision sparked outcry in the community, with concerns it would impact on response times.
Very much so. We need to make sure that every fire station in our local government area is able to be staffed, and so that the community feels safe.
But this afternoon, a spokesperson for New Emergency Services Minister Troy Grant said that's no longer the case. Instead, Abermain firefighters will move into their new look station on February 7 and 8, while those at Western will stay at their current location. The Minister's office adding that Fire and Rescue will continue to review service delivery for the area. Cessnock's mayor has welcomed the news. So too has local Labor MP Clayton Barr, but he still has concerns.
If they are going to take $22 million out of fire and rescue across New South Wales, then the only way that they can achieve that is by cutting back on staff and cutting back on equipment. Either one of those cases is going to put lives at risk.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
A city in the midst of a construction boom. In the 12 months to November last year, Housing Industry Australia says more than 1,200 new dwellings were approved in Newcastle.
Newcastle in particular is a standout in total as being the area with the most amount of growth both in detached and multi-unit approvals in the last year.
Favourable signs in other areas too, with 152 approvals in Cessnock, just over 1,200 across Lake Macquarie and 747 in Maitland.
November has been quite strong for a number of years in the Hunter, mainly I suspect because a lot of homeowners are looking to get their approvals into council before the Christmas rush begins in December.
While the figures show the Hunter's construction industry to be in good health, the region's property market is also looking positive. Local real estate agents say it's been one of the busiest starts to the year in recent memory.
This year's been very different. The buyers have been ready to go from day one, and the numbers that we're getting through open houses has just been amazing.
Agent David Phelan says inner city apartments in particular are being snapped up by investors off the plan, while first home buyers are looking at outlying areas.
If you look at all of the industries, the infrastructure in the city, the RAF base expanding, the airport, just Newcastle's a really good story of investment at the moment, and people want to live here.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
Because it looked like we'll be closing down at the end of last year, we had to call a halt to a lot of our community activities, and it's going to take us a bit of time to get all of those re-established.
Newcastle's last trip west was record-breaking and season-making, turning around its performances. But ahead of Saturday night's second game in Perth, the skipper played down the significance of that hoodoo-smashing result.
Records like that mean nothing to players. To be honest, we needed a result. Where we were at that stage of the season and how many points we needed. We knew it was a big challenge for us, and we also backed ourselves.
And that's what they'll be doing again this weekend, buoyed by a dominant display against City.
I thought not only the back four, the 2 sixes in front of us worked extremely hard, and the boys in front of us as well. So it was a good team performance, and you could see the desperation from boys trying to throw their body in, making sure they didn't score.
Wayne Brown completed the full session today, but it's not clear how he'll come back into the side. He could replace the suspended Steven Ugarkovic. Johnny Katrumbis is another option there. Or he may return to the number 10 role in place of Marlele in what is a crucial clash for the Jets' playoff hopes.
This probably next 2-3 weeks is a good platform for us to beat teams around us and really push for that top 4 and make sure coming into the kind of last round against teams that we're in a good position.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
I always thought that I'd come back for one stage, but yeah, just recently it was quite a surprise getting a phone call from Tony and asking to come back, so that was really, yeah, it's exciting for me to be here.
The kids love it, they have a bit of fun, and there's a few prizes to give out as well. So, you know, all the players have gone out to various schools today to promote the game.
Detective Senior Constable Jason Dean interviewed 68-year-old Graham Sloan for more than 2 hours the day after Renee Mitchell's death in November 2014. Today, Newcastle Supreme Court heard part of that interview in which Sloan denied killing the mother of 4 but told officers how he would have done it, saying, "If it was by a gun, I'd shoot her in the chest. I'd put a bullet in her chest, dig a hole, bury the gun. If it had been a knife, the way I would have done it, which I was taught in the army, was to cut her throat from behind." Sloan also went on to say, "If it had been me, I would have got rid of the evidence. I would have bought a knife from Woolies and got rid of the evidence." He's accused of murdering Mrs. Mitchell at a Windale Park. The defence team claims Sloan was suffering from an abnormality of the mind at the time of the killing, believing he was a travelling comedian. Sloan broke down several times while talking about Mrs. Mitchell, telling police if they find the person responsible to give him 5 minutes alone with them, and that he wouldn't leave any evidence. The trial continues tomorrow. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
There's a lot going on in Bellevue Street, and local businesses say the increase in activity is causing a decrease in cash flow.
It's been pretty significant. I think at the worst of it, our turnover was down by nearly half, and I'd estimate the cost on stock and lost trade to be around $30,000, which for a small business is pretty significant.
They claim the noise is making things unpleasant for customers. The dirt damaging stock. Business owners in nearby Beresford Street are also angry. While they chose not to speak on camera today, they told NBN News they're hemorrhaging money.
They've blocked the road at least 100 times in the last year, either fully or partially. And when cars can't get here, they just give up.
While there's a swell of support for rejuvenating the area, the businesses claim things need to be better managed.
Council, I think, is under-resourced. I don't think they have the personnel to be enforcing compliance of building sites.
In a statement to NBN News, Newcastle Council said approvals have been issued to fully or partially close Beresford Street and Lane for the construction work, and that no breaches have been found on the site requiring legal action. The developers couldn't be reached for comment today. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Back to school for another year. And another year of fighting over Gonski funding.
Both sides have previously committed to fully funding the Gonski needs-based funding model. One side has broken that promise. One side has walked away.
As it stands, Education Minister Simon Birmingham is still in talks with the states over a new school funding deal for the next 2 years. Labor claims it already knows the outcome.
Under this government's current proposal, every child in every school, in every system, in every state will lose.
Tanya Plibersek made the comments during a brief visit to St Mary's at Gateshead. One of the Shortland schools, she says, will lose $33 million in Gonski funding over the next 2 years, $140 million across the Hunter.
It means less support for the basics, for numeracy, for literacy, for science.
It's a real kick in the guts to our area.
While Ms Plibersek's visit was to discuss Gonski funding, she was also questioned on what Labor's doing about the Williamtown contamination scandal after Mr Shorten pledged in September Labor would step up its efforts.
We have been very concerned about the lack of government action.
Has any progress been made on that front?
Well, we've got a government that's clearly dragging its feet on this front. It's a very serious issue and we'll continue to push the government to act.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
It's a relief to us, knowing what we do now about the extent of injury and death that occurs around horses. It's one of the most dangerous things people can do in Australia.
As grand as it is iconic, welcome to Leslieville. Built in the 1870s, the Victorian manor was home to William Arnott, founder of Arnott's Biscuits, which grew from humble beginnings in the Hunter. Today, NBN News was given a look inside the heritage-listed home, which used to sit alongside the biscuit factory. From brass lions to chandeliers and a few very special touches, the property's charm has already attracted the interest of several potential buyers since it went on the market overnight.
We've had a flow of interest already. No open for inspections given the home, its attributes and the history, etc. But I'm expecting good interest not only locally but I would think around Australia.
Just how much this piece of history will cost you is yet to be disclosed, but you can bet it will be big bickies.
After 33 years in real estate, this is really a tricky one, so I guess the market's certainly going to let us know what they think of a very special home.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
They're usually the enemy in Gosford, but for 3 days, Cowburn, Clute and Jackson have been welcomed as part of the under-23 camp.
I came as a little bit of a surprise. I haven't played too many games this year, but it's good that myself, Nick and Devante from the Jets all got the invite, so that's good things for Newcastle.
The coach has been impressed with their versatility and ability to play a Socceroo style of football.
I think the training environment in Newcastle has steered me in the right direction, and I think over the last couple of years I've grown as a footballer as well, and I think that's helped a lot.
The trio will return to Newcastle in time for tomorrow's final session ahead of the trip to Perth. Glory shot stopper Liam Reddy is suspended for Saturday's game, and his teammates aren't sure which backup keeper will wear the gloves.
Rocket's had a great season, but like anyone, it's a good chance for somebody else to step up and fill his place.
It's a different story for skipper Roston Griffiths. He returns from a 2-game ban following a red card in Newcastle, but says he won't be changing the way he plays.
I'm in there to sort of break up play and try to intimidate and try to be physical as a footballer, and obviously it's cost me a red card, unfortunately, but that's sort of been my playing style, and it's the first red card I've ever got, so I'm not going to change it 28.
Meanwhile, Warners Bay looms as the team to beat in this year's Women's Premier League. The Jets' Cassidy Davis has been named the Panthers' player coach, and she's already recruited fellow W-Leaguers Jenna Kingsley, Brooke Miller and Adriana Jones.
There's nowhere to hide at Knights training now that Nathan Brown has eyes in the sky. The Auckland Nines squad trained this morning, the break from the pre-season slog, bringing a smile to even the shyest of faces.
It's an exciting time when you're leading up to the Nines, especially for the young kids. Probably the biggest crowd they'll get to play in this year.
This year's Nines will be Peter Mataudia's third. At 26, he's one of the elder statesmen heading across the ditch.
It's just good to get out there and play instead of running laps in 38 degrees.
He's trimmed down ahead of the 2017 season in a bid to make the number 1 jersey his own.
I'm a lot lighter this year. I'm dropped about 4 kilos this year, so looking forward to see how I feel this weekend. I was playing at 98 last year, and as a centre you're not doing as much running as you are at fullback, so I decided to drop some weight to see how I could go with the running and the contact, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Brock Lamb will make his return after a long injury layoff. He's key to the Knights season and believes the Nines provides the ideal platform for a young half.
I think I realised there's not as much room over there as you think. I went over there last year thinking there'd be room everywhere, but there's actually not. So you've actually got to create the space, and that's what we've been working on today, and we'll work on tomorrow. Just different plays and different structures that are going to help us find space.
The remainder of the Knights squad will play a trial against Tweed Heads in Murwillumbah on Saturday night. Joe Wardle was on hand today, but won't feature this weekend. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Dale Mitchell, emotional yet composed after coming face to face in court with the man accused of murdering his wife, Renee Mitchell. Taking to the stand at Graham Sloane's murder trial, he recounted the moment he realised Renee was missing from their Windale home. You didn't hear your wife leave with the accused? No. You didn't know she was gone? No. The jury heard Sloane told Mr Mitchell he'd dropped his wife at nearby shops, along with his wallet containing $1,000. But the Crown alleges Sloane instead killed the mother of four, stabbing her in a nearby park. The defence says at the time the 68-year-old was suffering from an abnormality of the mind.
The court was also shown the remainder of the police interview with the accused, in which detectives told him they'd found a bloodied shirt inside his home, along with his wallet, the very wallet the accused claims he gave Mrs Mitchell.
Moments earlier, Sloane was asked by detectives, "Is there any reason Renee's blood would be on your shirt, for example? Not that I'm aware of. Is there any reason Renee's blood would be on your shorts? Not that I'm aware of. Is there any reason Renee's blood would be on the shoes that you were wearing? No." Before ultimately denying any involvement in her death. When asked, "Did you kill Renee Mitchell?" Sloane replied simply, "No." Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Catherine Cusack in town for the first time in her new role, armed with a simple message on the city's progress.
There's no stopping this now. There's no slowing it, there's no stopping it.
But there was little time for introductions. Ms Cusack meeting with Lake Macquarie Council and tomorrow Newcastle, with amalgamations top of the agenda.
So if people can just be patient, because a lot of work has gone into this.
She also hosed down fears the Hunter will lose out following Mike Baird's resignation. He was reportedly viewed by some in his own party as overly generous to a traditionally Labor region. New Premier Gladys Berejiklian knows the area well after enduring a bumpy ride as Transport Minister.
Sir, you're being very rude. Can you please let me finish my sentence?
We're politicians, so you need to grow a skin when you're a politician, really. It's going to be a joy to her to come here and see some of the results of that unfolding.
An important day for the new government that Labor was determined to overshadow. Late this afternoon, the opposition leader hit Town Hall.
The new Premier should make it clear that those mergers in this region will not proceed.
Mr Foley's visit was certainly timely. A number of Hunter councils are fighting amalgamations, with Newcastle saying this latest uncertainty is causing further problems for administration and staff.
No council employee should have had to have gone through this process for such a long period of time. It's not fair.
Enough is enough. Hunter communities have been plagued with uncertainty for a year now, and when will it ever end?
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Coralie Davis never imagined she would be in this position. Her dog Annie recently suffered an horrific death while in the care of a kennel.
The Jack Russell had slit her throat from ear to ear, and there was blood everywhere.
Nathan Wilson is also leading the charge for change after his beloved dog Baron died in this kennel over Christmas. And the tragic plight of both owners has struck a chord. Today, an industry forum was held at Elderslie to highlight the need for reform, starting with a code of practice that's nearly 20 years old.
There are a number of words in that code that make it almost impossible to enforce, and I'm talking about words like should instead of must. It's time. We're overdue to take this code very seriously.
Someone needs to take ownership. RSPCA are understaffed and under-resourced. I don't think they're the ones to sort of be able to go out and enforce this. Today's about instigating change right across the board, and we'll see where that leads from here.
I just felt that I had to make a stand because, again, I didn't want it on my conscience that other dogs may die.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
he never did any other damage when it went out. So often when people dislocate their hip, they'll get a stress fracture or get some more damage. Thankfully for Paulie, they got it back in reasonably quick and there was no damage on the way out.
He's grown in confidence since his mid-season move from Adelaide, and with efforts like this, it's easy to see why Katrumbis is pushing for a first-team spot. The teenager was impressive against Melbourne City in a game the Jets could have won by more. Mark Jones says his players need to be more ruthless.
Would have been nice if we'd taken that opportunity, but having said that, Morton had one and Hurley had one as well. So it would have been nice to beat them 4 or 5-1 and not have to be stressing at the end of the game to hanging on. But end of the day, we've got to win and that's good enough.
The coach believes the defensive effort was Newcastle's best this season, helping Daniel Mullen retain his place at right back. Lachlan Jackson, Devante Clute and Nick Cowburn will return from Ollie Roos training to join the squad.
Lockie did a magnificent job, I thought, last week, so he comes straight back in the starting lineup. The other two will be on the bench and we give them the day off because they've trained 3 days straight, so we didn't want them to train 4 or 5 days straight into a game. So they have the day off today, they'll train with us in Perth and they'll be right to go.
A win in the West would put Newcastle 2 points clear of Perth in 5th and potentially 3 points behind City in 4th, ahead of a big clash with Melbourne Victory at McDonald Jones Stadium.
I think we've put ourselves in a great position and it'd be nice to consolidate on that and have a massive crowd against Victory, and there's a little bit of tension between us and Victory. It'd be nice to give it to them.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. She's represented her country at a junior and senior level and won open titles in the single trap. But claiming an Australian crown in the double trap wasn't exactly on the agenda for Tegan McCloy.
I hadn't previously trained for this particular event, so going in I didn't have any hopes at all of medaling or let alone winning the event.
Having narrowly missed out on a place on the Aussie team for the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, the win in Perth has given Tegan the confidence to push for a place on the Gold Coast.
It's definitely spurred me along. It wasn't something I was particularly looking at too hard previously, but now I do have this title. It is something I will work hard for.
The first national qualifying event will be held at the Olympic venue in Sydney next weekend, with 5 more qualifiers this year and a handful early in 2018. The 23-year-old knows there's plenty of work to be done and a host of high-profile rivals to overcome.
We've got 3 internationally ranked in the top 15 women at the moment, so it's fiercely competitive. But yes, something I will pursue.